Welcome to Prophecy in the News. Thank you for joining us this week. I'm Kevin Clarkson, your host. We are hosting this week Doc Marquis. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's a rare chance to have you with us, and we are trying to get all we can in terms of interviews with you. And we've talked about the Illuminati in several shows, about the giants that were in the earth, really about several areas. The Rapture, your book that's forthcoming about that. We're going to be talking today, if it's all right, about the Illuminati and the Olympic Games. And you've done a lot of historical research that I think a lot of us have never been aware of, or we certainly weren't taught, about the background of the games and some of the symbolism that is there and what is really going on. Is that right?
Well, exactly. And when we look at today's version of the Olympic Games compared to the original ones, what was that, 400 or something BC?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is so radically different. But there was a reason. You see, the Olympic Games originally basically started because if we go by the ancient legends, once Hercules had finished his 10 labors, 12 labors? I think it was the 10 labors of Hercules. He decided to create an event to honor his father Zeus by. And this is how the Olympic Games started. He came up with this great
competition.
Yes. And now, of course, back then it had the basic things, discus, the javelin, foot races, and wrestling, and that was about it. Now, it's progressed to where I think they have, 200 different things now?
Oh, I don't know. It's a lot,
It's
yeah.
up there.
I actually have a son-in-law that's competing for Winter Olympic bobsledding.
Well, I've got a friend, his name is Michael Birch. He is right now in training for, it's boxing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now they have basketball, too, and,
well, you put any basketball team against the American ones.
Against the NBA players.
You're just asking at that point to lose all the gold medal and just hand it over to the Americans.
This is true. This is true.
They're that good, let's face it. But something changed.
Something changed.
Something drastically changed in the Olympic game. But let me digress. The Olympic Games stayed around for, it was almost 1,500 years, I think it was, something, before it was outlawed because of the rise of Catholicism. And the Roman Emperor, I can't remember which one it was, said, no, we can't have this. It's pagan gods. And so it went, the way of the Dark Ages until 1896 would have been when it was revised and came back. Now, it was about 40 years later is when something funny started happening. And it was the Illuminati, through one of their puppets, who changed the Olympic Games forever.
Let's go ahead and define who the Illuminati are just again, in case someone's joined us that didn't catch the earlier broadcast.
The Illuminati, in a nutshell, the most powerful, covert, subversive organization of witches that's ever lived. Their entire belief system can be traced all the way back to ancient Babylon itself. The Illuminati started on May 1st, 1776, under Dr. Adam Weishaupt. They've been in operation ever since, trying to establish what Dr. Weishaupt wrote as the Novus Ordo Seclorum, or the New World Order. And this is where people, a lot of people believe that it was Papa Bush who came up with this new expression when he was speaking to Congress about we must create a new world order.
After the Persian Gulf War.
Right. And then, interesting enough, after he said it, the Pope, I believe it was John Paul II at the time, said we must create a new world order. After him, and the next world leader, Prince Charles of England, we must create a new world order. And then the Prime Minister of Russia, we must create a new world order. Where was this suddenly coming from? Was this a new fad that Papa Bush came up with? No.
Not at all.
Do you know who was the first political figure? Adolf Hitler. Yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah. the Olympic Games. He was mirroring through the vernacular the marching orders of his masters. We must create a new world order. And when we get to the Olympic Games, they changed it, as I said, forever. We like to think of some of these events as just commonplace. We don't think about it. You know, how many of us just think about the lighting of the Olympic torch, the marathon race, the person's going through, he'll enter into the stadium one way or the other, and eventually light the Olympic cauldron. Well, that story has its origins in the occult world. It does not begin at the Olympic Games because in the original games, it never existed. You never had an Olympic torch, a marathon race, anyone running into the stadium, let alone lighting an Olympic cauldron. None of that had existed, even in the 1892 version, let alone the very beginning. No, that first came into existence during the 1936 Berlin game under Adolf Hitler. His masters at the Illuminati told him, you are going to insert these new elements into the games.
And he was very much into the occult, wasn't he?
Oh, Adolf Hitler and just about all the bigwigs in the Nazi regime were all occultists. There were three major occult groups in the Nazi regime, but only one was running the power. You know, there was the Thor Society, the Vril Society, and obviously the Order of the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're the ones that was telling Hitler how to dance. And but what had happened? We look at these elements that was inserted into the game, and once you take a good look at it, you'll understand why, you know, why they were occultic, their history and everything. The torch itself represents hidden wisdom or knowledge. And it's interesting that you've got a man or a woman running through the stadium holding that torch, you know, from where they started. Well, usually they start in Olympia, Greece, you know, where they light the torch through these rites and rituals that the high priestess of Hera is presiding of. Hera being the wife of Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it at the ancient temple place where Hera was worshipped, and this where in the ancient Olympic area and everything. And so once these occult rituals are performed, the last thing they do is light the torch. That torch will be brought from the origins of the Olympic Games to wherever the Olympic Games are going to be held that year. And of course, it is a giant marathon race when you think about it, because it's passed from one person to another to another, you know. And sometimes this can take weeks, sometimes it can take months. But by the time the torch gets to the stadium, there's a big whoop-de-doo about it, and the Olympic cauldron will eventually be lit by it. But again, all this is based upon ancient occult stories. It is believed in quite a number of occult schools that the Earth Mother wanted to learn why things were taken away from her through death. She loved so many things, but they always died and decayed. So she decided to confront Hades himself and went through a number of challenges as she went into the underworld. And long and short of it is, when she confronted Hades, he says, this is not my doing. This is because of death and destruction. All things die. You know, and because they die, they decay. This is not my doing. And he fell in love with her, and she refused his advances, but eventually he taught her all the secrets of magic. And when she came back up through the belly of the underworld, she brought with her the hidden knowledge, which is represented by a flame, a torch. And it's interesting that in front of the Rockefeller Center building, you see that giant gold statue? That's Prometheus, who stole the fire from the garden, the hidden knowledge, the wisdom. And that circle around him, that gold band, is the 12 signs of the zodiac. a very occult symbol. But this is how hidden knowledge and wisdom is symbolized in the occult through either, tongues of flames or, a flame on a torch or something. And that's why it's significant in the Olympic Games, because they are actually reenacting not just the story of Gaia and how she acquired this hidden knowledge and wisdom, excuse me, but the way they acquired it also represents Prometheus, as he stole the fire and spread it throughout the world. And it is spread throughout the world at the Olympic Games, because once the cauldron is lit, well, you've got people from all over the world there
Sure.
who have now received that knowledge through the cauldron.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to read a scripture before we go further, just to put in light the forbidden aspect of this kind of secret knowledge and secret magic and power. You'll well know this, Doc. This is Deuteronomy 18. God told his people so clearly from the beginning. And he knew they were going to be leaving Egypt, one set of idolatry, entering Canaan, a whole new set, a bad set.
A very evil set.
And so the Lord says in Deuteronomy 18, verse 9, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. God has no tolerance for that.
No, he has no tolerance for the occult whatsoever or any of its practices. It's forbidden.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting. I just finished writing an article for the Prophecy in the News Monthly magazine about this next coming rapture on September 23rd. Yeah, guess what? We got the rapture coming again.
So we're told.
Well, we'll see it come and go as always.
Well, I've told people if everybody is circling that date on their calendar, you can be sure of one thing: it's not going to be on that day.
Exactly.
Now, it might be the day before. God may wink at us and
say,
he could come at any time.
Yeah, well.
But
yeah.
if he's coming in an hour that we think not. So
Exactly, as a thief in the night.
as a thief in the night.
So, I use that exact verse.
Yeah.
In
the article.
For this article, and
Well, I want to get into these because you've got 8 hours of teaching on this, and there's got to be, we've got 14 minutes for 8 hours, so we'll do our best. Let me just tell you how you can have these in your home and enjoy them, learn from them. These are each about 4 hours long. There are pictures and graphics and all kinds of illustrations to go along with Doc Marquis presenting. They're called Illuminati Gods at the Olympic Games, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I don't know why you'd want one without the other, but if you want to buy them separately, they're $19.95 each, plus shipping and handling. But we're putting them together in a set for $34.95. So that's a savings and discount of, I think, over 10-20%. So, as always, you go to our website, prophecyinthenews.com, or call the 800 number on your screen. While you're there, check out, we also have Doc's new book, The Final Rapture, and I think you'll be intrigued by it. It's been a blessing to many who have already encountered this teaching, so check it out. Okay, Gods at the Olympic Games. Let's get into some specificity. You were talking about the torch and the run. Then what other things do you see at these?
very easy. Let's look at the bell tower. Okay. If we look at the original games, let alone the one in 1892, there was no such thing as a bell tower, let alone an Olympic bell.
Mm-hmm.
But Hitler put one there anyways. You see, Hitler was brought into the arena in one of those long German cars.
Mm-hmm.
The topless ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. Open convertibles.
Yeah, right. And after he addressed the crowd, he went into the bell tower and he prayed to the soldiers of the soldiers of the dead. And this is what's known as necromancy. communicating with the dead. And he called upon them to bless the German Olympic athletes so that they would win. And after that, the bell was rung. Occultically speaking now, any time a bell is used during any ritual, the bell is rung to gather the attention of the gods so that they will listen to the rituals and bless all those in participation.
Okay.
That's the purpose of the bell tower in the Olympic Games, to bless all those who are listening in the crowd with an occult blessing.
Fascinating.
And again, that was not part of the games.
Right. No bell towers back in
None.
ancient Greece.
And when you entered into the German games, the Berlin Games of 1936, you passed through these huge giant pillars, 2 pillars. Those were, according to the ancient stories, the pillars of Hercules. Now, if you know the ancient legends, you would enter into the Aegean Sea. This is the Greek world now. And if you could find and pass through the pillars of Hercules, do you remember what was on the other side?
I do not. I'm sorry.
The legendary lost continent of Atlantis.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we look, the stories of Atlantis tell us that they were a super race, super technology, super athletic people, great resources, and great intellect. Hitler, through the Illuminati, when he put up those pillars, was proclaiming that of the German people, and especially the athletes. Well, didn't he say the Aryan race was a super nation?
He did.
And they were super people. They had super technology. It was at the 1936 Berlin Games that the first usage of television had been used.
Okay.
The Olympic Games would be the first thing that the so-called aliens up there are going to see. They're going to see the Chancellor of Germany, Adolf Hitler, and that tooth comb mustache of his, and, going like this and going like that and blah, 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 and talking about, the Olympic Games. That'll be the first thing they ever see. And, interesting enough, they had, I think it was 50 different view screens throughout Germany. It was like looking at one of the old big screen TVs, the projected ones. You could actually go and sit into it. It was like a miniature theater. And you could sit there and watch the Olympic Games playing. And that was in 36.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the first time television was actually created and utilized. And it was through that the Olympic Games was broadcast. That was truly a feat of super technology.
Sure was.
And then, of course, super athletic people. Well, that's what he was claiming of his own people. If we go through the whole story of Atlantis, it falls into place with what Adolf Hitler was projecting about the German people, the Aryan race.
Now, why are the Illuminati trying to signal these things to those who know what to look for? Why are they projecting these images?
Well, they're not projecting it for those who's in the know.
Mm-hmm.
It's being used to condition the people. A lot of people don't realize right now, but they're being conditioned to accept certain, shall we say, thoughts, ideas, lifestyles, things you and I would never have dreamt of when we were growing up. But they're doing it now in such a way that the teenagers are easily falling for everything that the Illuminati is putting out there. And this next generation that they're raising will be completely conditioned. Right now, most of the people are conditioned in such a way that they're going to accept most of the things the Illuminati's putting out there. But it's not quite complete yet. They need this next generation to where they've got them at a much younger age so that this conditioning process will lock them in for life.
Well, we have mentioned like NFL halftime shows.
Oh, and
a lot of pop star, rock stars have signals, I think.
Yes.
What kinds of things will they be conditioned for? What types of either lifestyle habits or changes or values? What things would you be referring
Well,
to?
one of the things you can easily, if you want to easily do this, watch what your kids are watching on TV. That's one thing I tell parents. If you're not watching what they're watching, you're letting them become victimized.
Mhm.
Because there's more things on the Illuminati, on the TV that's using Illuminati symbolism, such as
Doing the triangle.
the eye in the pyramid or capstone.
Mhm.
They're also doing different hand symbols, signals, excuse me, and a whole bunch of other things like that that the little ones think are normal, the teenagers think are cool, and the parents don't realize they're there because they're not watching what their kids are watching.
Mhm.
And it's these things that slowly turning the children's mind towards the occult. That's one of the main reasons why the TV, the movie, records have so many occult themes to them. I don't think that there's a time slot on TV where there isn't some witch, vampire, or werewolf
Mhm.
doing something somewhere. It's become that inundated.
Yeah. It's
A-
it's everywhere you look.
And it's the biggest fad you can imagine. I mean, look at how much Harry Potter.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a billion-dollar industry.
Mhm.
What's that other one?
The Twilight series.
Thank you, Twilight. My goodness. Witches.
Friendly
vampires.
neighborhood vampire, right?
Oh.
Not a dark, sinister thing. But
No, he's in
friendly.
high school with
And
his
Harry's
sweetie.
not scary. I mean, it's creepy, but it's designed to acclimate a child to this.
And even if you do become bit by a vampire, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You get to glisten and glow and all this other stuff. And I'm going, wow, that's definitely a new twist. But they've taken the old stuff and given it a positive, happy spin. And of course, it's a major lie through the teeth. Oh my goodness, it sounds like something Obama did. But nevertheless, so we see all this window dressing so that you can't see the truth. And this is part of the problem. People are not examining these things. They're not watching what their kids are watching. And so all this conditioning is going on so that by the time this Antichrist figure will arrive, the people then will be conditioned to where they're just going to accept him.
Just go with it.
Well, that's why people are just going with everything in the Olympic Games because they're not looking at it. They don't understand it. They're not studying it. And it's these Olympic Games that's helping to
Because
change.
there's such a global following.
Well, yeah,
It's a global sporting event.
global, isn't it?
So
Global.
that's the platform they use to disseminate this as far as they can.
Mm-hmm.
So many spectators.
Yes.
Super Bowl's the same way. It's the most watched event on television.
Well, look at how many hundreds of millions watch the Olympic Games.
Right.
And they're not so much watching the sports. I'd say about 20% of them are, but I would think the other 80% are only tuning in to watch the opening and the closing ceremonies.
Mhm.
That's where you have, these big productions that are lasting 3-4 hours long, and then eventually, the games begin. But, as I said before, there's a lot of occult themes and symbolism that's used. And starting back, again, in 36, is where the Illuminati started telling a story through these events. The story, the long and short of it is that the ancient serpent god is going to be coming back. And if you know who the serpent god is, obviously we're referencing Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what the whole of the beginning of the story to now has been teaching us, that this ancient serpent god really is coming back. And they've used a lot of occult symbolism, especially in the last few games, to really make the point of just how close they feel he is. And that's just part of what's going on at the modern day version of the Olympic Games.
Well, Doc, you're well versed in this, and it may be my last chance to ask you right now. What's their end game? We know what the Bible says and how it ends. But in their mind, what's the net result of all of their plan? Where does it land? What does it mean for humanity? In if you can tell me in about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's easy enough. Humanity becomes the slave of Lucifer, because in the end, it's believed Lucifer is going to kill God and the Holy Spirit and be put up on the throne of God, where they feel he rightfully belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And that from there, Lucifer will be ruling over all of creation.
And man will be serving him.
Right. And of course, those in the Illuminati, well, they're going to get special positions, power, and all this because they followed Lucifer, the so-called God.
And they're so deceived.
Oh, the greatest deceivers on the earth are the greatest deceived.
Well, that's surely true here.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do as believers, knowing that, God's plan and prophecy march on relentlessly? We can't stop it. But how do we live our life every day being aware of these
Live
things?
your life as if you've got a tomorrow, but prepare for tomorrow because we don't know if Christ is going to return or not. I tell everyone, just simply follow today as you would have yesterday. Just keep doing the best you can, and when the rapture happens, it's going to happen when you least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the tribulation period, which we won't be around for. God be praised.
Yeah. Should we keep our eye out on the news stories of the culture for more signs?
Yes, always do that. Because whenever you see the activity of the Illuminati, whenever you see them move, watch for the prophecies. Because God has always got every single one of their plans counted.
Amen.
And so watch for activity out of nowhere and keep your eye on where it's going. Because I guarantee you, more than likely, especially nowadays, it has something to do with the coming New World Order.
And it's accelerating, don't you believe?
Greater right now than all of recorded history.
Mhm.
We are accelerated, literally plunging, if you
Toward
would,
this.
to our own destruction.
Wow. Well, friends, I want to tell you, these are dangerous but exciting times to be alive. Dangerous if you don't know Christ. Exciting if you do. Because if you know him, his coming draws nigh. Every day is closer. Soon he will call his people, we will be caught up. We will escape the judgment and wrath coming on this earth. We will prepare to usher in a millennium and then an eternity of joy and gladness. But if you don't know the Lord, don't be deceived. Satan hates you, and he has a horrible plan for your life. Run away from him. Resist the devil. Submit to God. Give your life to Christ, and let's keep looking up.